All right. Well, this is kind of a serious practical question here. This first question comes from Ethan. How can those who are happy with the election results show compassion to those who are devastated by it? Any advice on how to handle the conversations from those such as gay/trans who think the world is ending?
Yeah, there's been a lot of, I don't know a lot, but there's been some concern about this in the news. People have talked about this, and I know that schools, some universities are taking time off and having special classes on how to deal with. Well, first of all, I think you can, how do we show compassion? You just show compassion. You be sympathetic. That is, don't berate them. Don't find fault with them personally. You might even say, well, I can understand how you might be concerned about things. Do you mind if I make a suggestion? There you go. So you're looking for permission. And here's what I suggest. Why don't you wait and see? Why don't you wait and see? Another thing that I'd suggest is what exactly are your specific concerns? And here you want them to be concrete. I actually watched some interviews with people on the street where they were expressing concerns, but it was very difficult for them to come up with very specific things. Well, here's what's going to happen that we know are going to happen that are going to be devastating to me and my group or human rights or whatever. So have them be specific about what they think is going to eventuate. So maybe that's the, the first question. What do you think is going to happen? What is your concern? And that's kind of, what do you mean by that question? And then when they raise these concerns, suggest this. Well, why don't you write those things down and then wait and see? So that's the second part. The wait and see is the second. Because, and this is just a general principle for life, most of our worries are never realized. Most of the things that we're concerned about happening don't actually happen, which I think is the reason why Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount said, essentially, shrink your concerns down to one day size. Worry about today's problems. Tomorrow has enough difficulty of its own. Let's take it one day at a time. I think that's wise. I'm chuckling because I'm saying, yeah, Jesus, you got it right there. That was a pretty good one, But sometimes we don't realize how wise the thing that Jesus tells us is, and this is one of those. Okay, and I'm reminded frequently when I face difficulties in my own life and thinking, okay, just one day at a time. Just take one day at a time, because the fact is, many things that we worry about don't ever take place. So we've wasted our worry and got stressed out for nothing. And this is something just to pass on to others. You might even say Jesus offered this bit of advice. Most people like Jesus, especially when it's good advice that is not, in a sense, spiritually freighted. So here's what he said. Worry about one day at a time. Write all these things down that you're concerned about. Fair enough. Got it. Then see if they take place. Just watch as things unfold. Not much you can do about it, but at least, not now, you can be worried about it. But my suspicion is, and by the way, this isn't a political statement that I'm making with regards to the particulars of the incoming administration. This is a principle for life. My suspicion is most of the things you're worried about are not going to take place the way you're concerned about them. But we'll see. And when they actually take place, then start using up your kind of emotional capital on that. But don't use your emotional capital up on things that haven't happened yet, and it's not clear they will happen. They may not. Wait it out. That would be, I think, a best way to be compassionate, sympathetic. I get it. I can understand why you'd feel that way. What are your concerns? Specify. Write those down, see if they happen. Mm-hmm. But don't worry about them until they do happen. What do you think? Kind of a way of approaching it.
And I think I would add to that maybe the note that, in elections, there's a lot of rhetoric going around. And people are trying to scare you about the other side. And so I really think a lot of what you've heard is overblown. So maybe I can even help you with those concerns because maybe you haven't heard from someone directly who disagrees with you. Maybe I can allay some of those fears for you because I'm just interested in a lot of people are interested in just turning you against the other side so you don't even hear. But so let's just actually talk about it and maybe I can set some of those fears aside.
My suspicion is this, I think this is a good suggestion, but it's more risky because now you kind of have to make the case that their specific fears are unfounded with regards to the administration coming in. You can make your own decision about that, and we're not weighing in on that one way or another. But in the first case, you're talking about a life principle. Most of the things we worry about don't take place. So write them down and leave them there, and then keep your eye open and see what happens. Don't worry about them until they happen. And I think, of course, that may not assuage their concerns. But then if you're able to take the next step and they're open to it, of saying, it's unlikely from what I know that this particular fear will be realized based on this information regarding the president-elect or the new administration or something like that. But that's a separate step.
And I realize that, it is a risk to have to defend anything or explain anything in a way they'll understand. And what I was going to say is that there actually is a difference in worldview here. So there is a sense in which probably some of the things they are afraid of will happen. For example, if they are very for males competing in women's sports, if they believe themselves to be women, that could change. I mean, that actually could change. This could be something that changes. So that's why it could be risky because you're just in a completely different worldview. So my other suggestion, depending on who they are and where you think they are and what their fears are, because they might have actual real concerns that oppose their worldview. I think where I would take this is to move it into more of an evangelism situation, because you can share with them, because their fear is that they're devastated because of the future. And this is where you can come alongside them and say, sometimes we all get in a position where we're very fearful about the future. And I'm just so grateful that I can trust a sovereign God who has proved himself to be loving and caring and who cares about justice. I'm grateful that I can trust him. And I would love to talk to you more about him, because I think if you could trust him, then you would probably feel a little bit better, because even if things go wrong, there's still someone in charge. Right. So I think I would probably move it that direction.
Good advice.
Ultimately.